The legendary cellist Pablo Casals was asked why he continued to practice the cello when he was 90 years old. Anyone know what he said? The quote I have is, because I think I'm making progress. Same thing. If the man who set the standard for the cello believed in practice, all of us as Toastmasters can always strive to practice and improve our game. There's no such thing as stopping to learn unless we decide we're going to stop. So it's a strange speech. I'm going to start with point number 8. Revised handout. I sent out this morning by email. Those of us here in person, you've got it on paper. So to go through what I've learned from Toastmasters. Number 8, there's so much you can learn and go back and forth between communication on paper, communication verbally. There's some differences, but latter part of my career, writing columns for the Post Register, I would go back and forth. Sometimes I'd write a column, practice it in Toastmasters, or go in the other direction. So there's a lot of similarities. You want to start with something catching, whether it's verbal or written. One difference is that in the written word, if you lose your audience, they can always go back a paragraph and say, well, not so easily if you're a live in-person discussion. So when you're speaking in person, you want to be extra careful not to send people down little rabbit trails, because if they lose where you are or what you're trying to do, it's that much tougher for them to get back in the swing of things. So point number 9, there's a zillion different ways to prepare for a speech. And over time, I encourage you to find which method works for what situation for you. It will not be the same. Sometimes you want to write out a speech word for word. Sometimes bullet points, which is what I typically do and what I've done for this talk. Sometimes I will create a speech only in my head by a series of mental images. Sometimes I'll depend on PowerPoint as essentially my bullet points. There's all kinds of different ways. It's not right or wrong. It's what works for you in a given circumstance. And you want to practice those different methods because you never know when it might be required of you. One of our fellow Toastmasters in Idaho Falls, Darren Long, found out once at a big event that he was one of the speakers. He found this out at the beginning of the ceremony. So he ended up having to do an impromptu 15-minute speech in front of a large audience. So you're always looking for ways to prepare for speeches. Point 10. This connects a bit with Sharon's speech. There's a difference between earned authority and titled authority. I learned this most dramatically as I went beyond the club to area director, as Jess is now, division director, and then the district officers leading eventually to district director. When I was district director, the number of times I could order someone to do anything was a really, really, really small number. I had to persuade. I might have had a title. It gave me some advantages. It gave me some opportunities to steer things, but I had to persuade. So just because you don't have a title doesn't mean you can't lead. Conversely, just because you do have a title doesn't mean you're a leader. You might be a dictator, you might be a failed dictator, but don't confuse earning authority and the title of authority. And the best single example in the 20th century was Mahatma Gandhi. He is known as the father of India. He is a revered national figure in India. At no time did he ever have any title in government or organization or leadership as he led the nation of India to independence from the United Kingdom. It was all earned authority, 0 titles. So I did 10 points. And then as preparing for this speech, I said, I'm going to learn something from last week when we did the member induction. Remember reading out the 10 promises, Toastmaster promises. See, one of the ways I get my ideas for speeches is what happens at Toastmaster meetings, either because the feedback I get from my presentations or some comment makes or anything. These ideas are potentially bopping around. Well, we did the induction and read through the promises, and I said, where do we stand as Jack C High in fulfilling these 10 promises? Mick, could you start up the slides? So I went back through the 10. They're on the handout. More importantly, they're up there. So you should be able to see the 3 slides. Slide or promises 1, 4, and 5. Attending meetings regularly, and let's see, I can't quite read that. 4 is constructive and helpful evaluations. I think we do a good job evaluations in this club. And we have a positive, friendly environment. So those 3 promises, I think the club is doing a darn good job. Next one, because my slide thingy is not going to cooperate. There, you got. Okay. And to treat fellow club members and our guests with respect and courtesy. I think we do that quite well. We follow the various guidelines and rules. We're not a club that tries to cheat. I'll tell you, as a district director, I had to deal with some clubs that were not fulfilling that promise. And I think we do a darn good job of living and working with the core Toastmaster values of integrity, respect, service, and excellence. That's a speech all by itself, those 4. So next slide, please, Mick. So I skipped over a couple of numbers. There's a few things that I think we could do a little better on. Number 2 is to use the education program. Nowadays, that's called Pathways. I'm thrilled to see that today we're doing that. All 3 of the speakers are doing pathway projects. So that's something we can re-energize, recommit ourselves to doing. Number 3, fulfill meeting assignments. Things happen, the schedule has to change. Once that happens, once Mick puts the schedule as VPE, then if something's changed, then whoever has an assignment has to work to get that assignment met. That means, however, that we're all in this together. By that, I mean, if someone can't be Toastmaster, can't be Zoom Master, can't be whatever, step up, jump in when people need, as Susan did a week ago. DJ had a funeral to go to today, out of town, and you jumped in immediately. It also, to help things work well, if you do trading of positions, like, oh, I was going to be a speaker this week, can't be. Gee, so-and-so, I see you're a speaker in 3 weeks. Can we swap? Tell the Toastmaster, general evaluator, whatever. Let's not keep these trades secret. This is not a stealth organization. Let's communicate. I've had situations where I've been Toastmaster. It's happened to others where people have traded and nobody told me. So tell the Toastmaster, tell the GE, whoever's relevant. Number 6, service club officer. Mick found himself as vice president of education for this 6-month period as officers. Well, we'll be electing officers again in December. He agreed to it as a temporary measure. Well, we're now 4.5 months into a temporary assignment. So we want people to step forward. I will tell you that I have learned something from every club office. I've been all 7 up through district director. You learn something in every single position. Other than sergeant at arms and maybe treasurer, all the other 5 positions can be done remotely or here in Idaho Falls, either way. So as the current club leadership talks and explores, put your hand up to serve as a club officer when we have elections sometime in December. And point number 8, guests. How does a club survive? The club survives by bringing guests in and then turning those guests into members. We do a really good job at turning guests into members. We need more guests. Some of us have kind of tapped out our circle of friends. I'm in that category. Most of the people I know, I've known for a long time, and I've pestered them to join Toastmasters. That doesn't mean I'll give up, but bring guests. So, conclusions. Toastmasters has made me a better person, a better parent, a better boyfriend for Kathy, a better communicator, you name it. Toastmasters has improved me as a person. The more you put into Toastmasters, or most things, the more you will get out of it. When I joined Toastmasters all those years ago, I thought, oh, I'll do a little bit. I'll learn a little bit about speaking a little better at work. But every time I'd complete a goal, I'd learn there's more to do. There's more I can learn. There's another mountain to climb. There's more practicing that I can do, even though I don't play a cello. There are more ways you can learn in this organization than you can imagine. Nancy and I have both served as district director, although in her days it was called district governor. They went and fiddled with the title. So there's all kinds of different ways to learn, all kinds of ways to serve and to enjoy. In fact, partway through my term as district director, I finally realized I could boil it all down to 3 words: learn, serve, enjoy. So I ask you all, put yourself into Toastmasters to improve yourself, to improve the club. And thank you all for being in the club with me. Back to you, Susan.